If you're looking for a wireless video transmission solution, you're gonna wanna check this out. Hollyland just released the brand new Pyro system, which includes the Pyro S, the Pyro H, and the Pyro 7, which is a 7-inch monitor that is also a transmitter and receiver. All of those units have the same awesome core functionality, like being able to transmit up to 1,300 feet or 400 meters, a minimum 50 millisecond latency, being able to connect to up to 4 receivers at the same time, automatic dual band hopping between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz to give you a rock solid connection, and loads more that we'll definitely talk about in this video. But because everyone's needs are different, what really makes the Pyro series stand out to me is the flexibility of the whole ecosystem, the hardware options available, and how you can use those hardware options to work for whatever kind of project or shooting that you do. So what I'm gonna do today is break down the whole Hollyland Pyro system for you, talk about what it can do and how it might help you with your productions. So secure the cup and let's get into it. So the most exciting part of the Pyro system for me is probably the 7-inch monitor, the Pyro 7, because it's got lots of functions that I think will work into my personal workflow really well. But logistically, it probably makes sense to start by talking about the Pyro S, since it's kind of the core of the whole system. That being said, there are chapter markers down below if you can't wait to get to the Pyro 7, but I do recommend watching the whole video. Kicking things off with some of the physical features of the Pyro S. The Pyro S kit that I have here includes the transmitter and the receiver as core pieces of the kit. However, you can get separate transmitters or receivers depending on how you want to expand or build out your own personal use case scenario. Right out of the box, these units feel solid. They're made of a magnesium alloy, which also makes them really light and really great for heat dispersion. For power options, you can use an NPF battery on the back if you want, or they've also got a DC input, and the DC input is threaded as well, so you can get it locked in there without having to worry about it accidentally coming unplugged. This specific kit does come with a wall adapter that's for the DC input, but you can also use D-tap, which is what I'm sure a lot of people will do. The Pyro S is called the Pyro S because it includes SDI as well as an HDMI input on the transmitter, and then we've got matching outputs on the receiver for both HDMI and SDI. Both units also have a USB-C port on them that can be used for future firmware updates, but can also be connected to a wireless card for streaming or anything like that, or connected directly to a computer, and that receiver will show up as like a webcam, so you can be streaming directly from your computer if that's something you want to do as well. Both units have a built-in fan system that will keep them nice and cool, and they have 2 different fan modes, either auto or low, so you can use that low one if you want it to be as quiet as possible if you're in a quiet environment for filming. Pyro S also has brand new antennas that you might notice have antennae? Pyro S also has brand new antennas on them that you might notice says 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Both units have a nice big bright LCD display that have 3 buttons beside it, making the menu super easy to navigate. And one of my favorite features on the Pyro S units, and this is gonna sound silly, is the power switch. It's like a nice physical switch, and it just has a nice feel to it. There's just something about a good power switch. Now, before we move on to the actual functionality of these units, I want to touch on the Pyro H, which I don't actually have here, but I think they're important to talk about. The Pyro H is a less expensive option than the Pyro S that packs a lot of the same features inside, but has a slightly different hardware set. The main difference being that the Pyro H only includes HDMI options, so no SDI, but it does have an HDMI loop out option as well. The Pyro H transmitter and receiver units are lighter than the Pyro S, and they have the ability to take power via their USB-C ports. The Pyro H has a smaller LCD screen that's on the side and uses one of those little clickable wheels to function instead of the buttons that we see on the Pyro S, and they also have different antenna than the Pyro S, but they still function the same. With all of that being said, the Pyro H basically has the same functionality under the hood as the Pyro S, so if HDMI is all you need and you want the smaller, lighter, and less expensive option, Pyro H might be the way to go for you. But if you want maximum compatibility and you want both HDMI and SDI options, then then Pyro S would be the way to go. Now, it's time to talk about what these things are actually capable of, and that'll tie later into that Pyro 7 monitor as well. And now we need a new view. First and foremost, when you take out the receiver and transmitter, plug them in as you need to, and turn them on, they just work. The Pyro system includes automatic dual band hopping, so it can use both 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, and within that, it's also got automatic frequency hopping. So they've really done everything they possibly can to give you a rock solid connection that you don't have to worry about. And they've also got groups, so if you're setting up multiple cameras and you want to run multiple systems, you can set that up as well. Once you've got them connected, there's a minimum latency of 50 milliseconds, which is really great for most situations, and they've got a range of up to 1,300 feet or 400 meters when you're not in broadcast mode. Which might make you ask the question, what's broadcast mode? When you turn on broadcast mode, you can connect a single transmitter to up to 4 receivers. So if you need a director's monitor, a focus puller, maybe a client monitor, and then one more for whatever you can possibly think of, no problem. Being in broadcast mode and being able to connect to those 4 receivers does drop the range down to 650 feet or 200 meters, but that's still a lot of range. Here's the thing though, if you turn off broadcast mode, you can still connect a single transmitter to up to 2 receivers and 2 mobile devices using the HollyView app, which has all sorts of different features in it, just like a professional monitor would. So let's say you're already running 2 receivers that are going to 2 different monitors, and at the last minute your client wants to see something, you can grab an iPad with the HollyView app and set them up with a view just like that without having to change into broadcast mode. Or in my case, as a solo content creator, it's really nice to be able to connect to the app, see my frame, my composition, my exposure, all of those kinds of things, and have tools like I would have in a professional monitor as well. And I can even record to my phone or take a quick freeze frame if I just want something for social media. When it comes to the actual wireless transmission itself, Hollyland has something called scene modes, and there are 2 of them that you can choose from. Smooth mode prioritizes the connection and low latency while automatically and dynamically adjusting the bit rate as necessary. Then there's HD mode, which prioritizes image quality and will give you a stable 8 to 12 megabits per second, even at that maximum 1,300 foot range. For most use cases, I think the smooth mode will probably do the trick. It's worked great for me, but if you need the highest quality possible, maybe for broadcast or something like that, then you've got HD mode. And that pretty much covers the wireless capabilities of the Pyro units, but I really just want to double down on how easy they are to use. Not only do they just kind of work straight out of the box, like I mentioned before, but I also completely ignored the quick start guide and the manuals and everything, and I just started working with them and completely got it, like super easy. And that seems like something simple that should be something that happens with every product, but we all know that it's not, so it was really a nice breath of fresh air for it to just work and for it to be simple to navigate the menus. And now, it's time to talk about the thing that I mentioned before that I'm the most excited about in the Pyro series. Okay, just gotta find center. This is the Pyro 7. It's a big, beautiful 7-inch monitor, full touchscreen capabilities, but the reason that I wanted to talk to you about all the Pyro S stuff and the transmitter stuff before I got to this is because there is a built-in transmitter and receiver inside this monitor as well. So all of that stuff that I talked about before, the 1,300 foot range, auto band hopping, auto frequency switching, connecting to the app and more is all built in here as well. And because it's a monitor, transmitter, and receiver, there are 2 main ways that you can use it. Actually, kind of 3. First of all, you can just use it as a monitor connected to your camera, good to go. But from there, if it's connected directly to your camera, you can also put it in transmitter mode, and it can be sending to 2 different receivers that also have monitors connected to them, or if you put it in broadcast mode, you can go out to 4 receivers, just like all the stuff that we talked about before. Or you can put it into receiver mode like I have it here, and it'll get that signal directly from the transmitter that's plugged into the camera. No need to plug in another receiver to the unit like you would normally have to do with another monitor. Basically, it's like they took the Pyro S transmitter and the Pyro S receiver, smushed them together, and put it in the Pyro 7 monitor. monitor. So you already know what this thing is capable of in terms of wireless transmission, but let's talk about the unit itself, because you better believe that there's even more going on here. So the main thing, of course, is that we've got this big, beautiful 7-inch monitor, and it is a touch screen, so you can get to all your menus and that kind of stuff that way, and it is really nice and responsive. It feels good to use that touch screen. On the top, we've also got 2 customizable buttons, so if you've got a couple of things that you want to set up for those that you use regularly, you can do that within the menu system. For me, I've got F1 set up to turn on and off a LUT, and then F2 turns on and off focus peaking. We've got antennas on the top, 2 of them that are the same as the Pyro S series, and then we've got 1/4-inch points on the bottom and both sides that also have locating pins, so you can connect it in a bunch of different ways. On the back, we've got HDMI in and out, and we've got SDI in and out, so we've got the same connectivity that we saw on the Pyro S transmitter and receiver units. And we've also got a headset port here that you can plug into, a USB that is capable of the same things that we talked about with the Pyro units, and we've got our DC in that is also locking just like we saw on those Pyro S units. And the Pyro 7 does come with a D-tap to DC cable as well. With that being said, you also have the ability, like I have here, to put in 2 NPF batteries, and they are hot swappable, so you can constantly be changing them out and never run out of power. We've got a fan internally with the vents on the top and the bottom, and again, we've got those 2 different modes for the fan, so you can go either to auto or to low if you're trying to make it as quiet as possible. And once again, we've just got a really satisfying power switch on the top that's just so nice. A little color coding thing there. It's green when it's on, it's red when it's off. I don't know what it is, but I just love a good power switch. But of course, the crown jewel of this whole thing is the big, beautiful, bright 7-inch monitor. It goes up to 1200 nits, so it's nice for filming outside. You're not gonna have to worry too much about not being able to see when it's bright out. And there are going to be accessories that you can get for this, including a sun hood if you want to take the extra measures. And the last physical feature about this monitor that I think is kind of exciting and interesting is the fact that it's got an SD card slot, and actually comes with a 32GB card too, but we're gonna come back to that in a second. Now, I hate to sound like a broken record here, but one of the things that impressed me the most about the Pyro 7 was the Holly OS software, and again, just how easy it was to use. I popped in and knew exactly what I was doing within a couple of minutes of getting this turned on. At the bottom, we have a bar with all of our main video monitor functions like waveform, vector scope, histogram, focus assist, aka focus peaking, zebras, false colors, LUTs, zoom, aspect marker, grids, center mark, anamorphic D-squeeze, mirroring, flipping, and image overlay. And all of these functions are super customizable and easy to do as well. For example, when I wanted to get LUTs onto the monitor, all I had to do was throw the LUTs onto that SD card, go to the LUT function, and then in the bottom right here is how you can customize them, find 3D LUTs, LUT import, and it's pretty easy from there. You just find your files and you're done. Or if I wanted to customize the anamorphic D-squeeze, I turn it on, and then when I go to the customization in the bottom right, it automatically brings me to the anamorphic D-squeeze menu. I either choose a setting from there, or I can customize and make my own. On the right-hand side, we can lock the screen if we don't want to accidentally hit anything, or we can take a screenshot, and then up at the top, we can get into our system settings. On the left-hand side, we've got wireless, the middle we've got display, and on the right side we've got our system settings, but you can pretty much tap anywhere because they're all in the same menu, and then you can move to whichever one you want. Like I said, this whole system and all the menus took me like a couple of minutes to figure out. It's just so easy to use. And if you're using the HollyView app on your phone or on an iPad or whatever, it almost looks exactly the same as this. So you've got that kind of muscle memory if you're used to using this and then moving over to a mobile device. Now, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is that big red button right in the bottom corner. And this is where that SD card slot comes in. The monitor has the ability to record 1080 files directly to that SD card that you can use as proxies or as a backup, or if you want them for social media or something like that, and you can play them back directly on the monitor. Now, these are pretty small files, so you probably won't want to be using them as your main files for a lot of purposes, but it's really great to have that ability for the backup or proxies or any of those kinds of things. Or if you're like me and you're a camera reviewer, this could be a good way for you to record the screen of your camera in a time when you don't need it necessarily to be a full 4K file. Similarly, if you're using the HollyView app that has, like I said, that almost identical interface, you can record directly to your camera roll as well. One cool thing that the Pyro 7 can do that I haven't been able to test yet is receive two signals from two different transmitters and switch between those views using the function buttons. I only have the one transmitter other than the actual monitor itself, so I haven't been able to check this out, but it seems like a cool thing to be able to do if you run a 2-camera setup. So like I said earlier, each part of the Pyro series on its own is cool. There are some super user-friendly and useful features, but what I really love about the Pyro system as a whole is that there's something a little bit for everybody in there. If you're on big sets, you can build out a kit that has a transmitter, a couple of receivers, and maybe even a couple of Pyro 7s for your 4 different monitors connected to one camera. Or if you're on a smaller team, maybe you just want a couple of Pyro 7s, one to go on the camera and then one to either go to the director or to the focus puller. Or if you're a solo creator, maybe the Pyro H kit, and then you can use either USB or your mobile device for streaming. Basically, if you need any kind of wireless video transmission capability, or if you just want a really big, beautiful 7-inch monitor for whatever reason, the Pyro series is definitely worth checking out. As always, there will be links down in the description if you want to check anything that I talked about in this video more, and head down to the comments and let me know if there are any questions that you have about the Pyro series, and I'll do my best to try and help out. And on your way down to the comments, you can do your like and subscribe thing if you want. Huge thank you to Hollyland for sponsoring this video. Huge thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Did I do it? Yep. People in the background of my video, they're wearing bright yellow, so I have to wait. Oh no, I hit my LUT button. Did you know that the Pyro 7 monitor includes lasers?